Yeah, I think the stigma has always been there. You have a problem, then you go to counselor. A counselor is not there for regular kids kind of thing.
Welcome to episode 4 of Together, a Shared Concern. My name is Tzang, Tong. In the last episode, we covered about why bullies become bullies. In this episode, we're going to talk about what do we do and what can we do. I think what do we do, what can we do is very, very different from the earlier conversation about coping mechanisms. When we talk about coping mechanisms, we talk about what a young person can do when the bullying is happening to me. But now we're talking about things on a more societal level. When we see bullying as teachers, as parents, as friends, as bystanders, what are the things that we can do? We understand so much about power and learned behavior, but what can we do to help the situation? I'd like to understand a little bit about how schools are helping, and maybe if you can share with us how schools are taking action, and in what way are sometimes the actions not working.
I think a very interesting point is that when you work with students and you work with schools and parents, the parents think that it is the school's problem. The schools think it is the parents' problem. So nobody wants to take responsibility or take action because they think the other party is going to be doing something about it or should do something about it. So when we work with the parents will of course have a lot of grievances, and they don't believe that their kid is that bad, that it is a byproduct of the school environment. From one example that I have with a secondary school boy, he was bullied and he's an introvert. So he withdrew into himself. The parents couldn't get him out of bed to go to school. The school came together with counselors, teachers, and everything. And so they identified a teacher who is very patient, very kind, and he took the boy under his wings. This boy was like constantly texting him, getting assurance because that teacher was his assurance. And then when the teacher is on MC that day, the boy is not going to school. That's a problem. When he has a little bit of an issue, he will text the teacher, and when the teacher doesn't reply, he's not going to school either. He can't function because that's his assurance, that's his safety net. He told the teacher that he doesn't feel safe if the teacher is not there. Yes, that teacher was helping the boy, but it can also be harmful because he is so reliant. He's so reliant on the teacher.
I like this insight about how help can become some kind of a dependence. But I want to take a moment here because you're talking about how there's so much information and so much different advice. Maybe I would like to hear from you guys, do you all also face that? Like there are so many ways to deal with one problem. One moment somebody asks you to stand up, another person asks you to count on a teacher. How do you cope with this kind of multitudes of advice?
Okay, so personally for me, it's really important to have a wide circle of support, a few people that you can approach to when you actually face problems like bullying.
I don't think that one person should rely on one friend for advice, for help, for anything, because that can put a lot of stress on that one friend. And that one friend, they have their own problems too, and they cannot really solve, their friends' problems on top of their own. I've had a few instances where a few friends would come to me asking me for a lot of help, and I want to help, but I have my own problems too, and in turn I end up feeling very overwhelmed.
I'm very, very glad that you shared this perspective, right? How we sometimes overburden because somebody has this kind of disposition that I'm here to help you, I'm here for you. But sometimes we forgot or disregard that this person himself is a human being and has himself or herself some kind of problems or issues of their own that they have to take care of. On this note on over-reliance, help that becomes some kind of unhealthy dependence. Esther, do you have a perspective about this?
Yeah. When a victim comes to a therapist for help, and then we ask, this has been happening for so long. Did you try asking help? Did you go to anyone else in school? And it's like, it's hopeless. I tried. And the counselors say, you just don't do things that will make them angry. I have worked with victims who have asked for help and gone to teacher. And the teacher would in her face say, can you stop being a drama? And so she couldn't take it. She had to tell her parents because it was getting overbearing. Because her things were stolen, her money was stolen, and her diaries were being read, and there's stuff that are being said about her that weren't true. And it was getting overwhelming. For months, she was going through that. And then because she had to rely on her teacher, and she was told to report to your teacher every time it happens. But it came to a point where the teacher would say, I'm telling you, stop being a drama. So she decided that I will not tell teacher, and she will not even go for recess because she gets picked on during recess. So I asked her, where did you go? And she said, toilet. I said, what toilet? It's the safest place. Recess, I'll go to the toilet. And for the whole 20 minutes, she'll be in her toilet. And I said, what about food and recess? She said, I don't want to eat during recess. So she decided to be in the toilet. And it was going on for about 2 months. Recess time, she goes to toilet. And after recess, she'll go back into the classroom. And she said to me, it's like, no, I just want to disappear. And that is dangerous because when they say they want to disappear, we are thinking about, wow, okay, you are very important to your parents and everyone here. Don't think of ending it here. That is, don't die on me ever. If you're seeing me, don't die on me. It's not the way. Yeah, that is also why CABCY exists. More than 10 years ago, in 2006, Coalition Against Bullying for Children and Youth, we started because we want to stop suicide as a result of being bullied. And this is where I want to come to that. I think we should have this available resource for them. Counselor is not helping them find someone else outside of school. But I do think that schools are trying because schools are also approaching people like us, organizations like CABCY and some other institutions where they want to train teachers to help the students in school. But then again, teachers are always really piled up with lots of work, teaching and administration work. Sometimes I tell parents that you have to be understanding that teacher is not just teaching the class. They've got a lot of preparation to do, and they've got teachings and they've got homeworks to marks and all of that.
Correct. Which is that question, right? What do we
Yes.
do? What can we do? And when you talk about schools, are schools equipped? In your experience with schools, for many years of advocating anti-bullying in schools, right? Sometimes schools are also in denial that bullying has existed. Are they equipped to help? And you also mentioned very, very appropriately how teachers themselves are so overwhelmed with marking duties, administrative duties, delivering, and achieving. So with on top of that, the whole bullying problem sometimes can, as what that teacher says, becomes a dramatic problem or a problem to add on to that teacher's load of problems. How can schools be more equipped? How can we equip the teachers?
I mean, with any advocacy work, right, we need the highest of the powers to actually say that we need to equip the schools and give the schools what they need. If you have to hire more counselors or you need to hire a facilitator to manage the problems, the mental, social, emotional problems of students, not just bullying, but every other, depression, anxiety, and all of that, if they can be equipped with enough number of counselors or facilitators, you can do a lot more for students.
I'd like to hear from young people. You have heard about counseling. Sometimes you hear of your friends being advised or recommended for counseling. What are your perspectives about counseling, or what are your friends' perspectives about counseling?
I do think that school counselors really do help a student, but the only way that they are helpful is if the student is willing to go. So I've had a lot of cases, I have a lot of friends, but there's a lot of them, they told me that they don't trust the school counselor. And I think the main reason why a lot of students, they don't trust the school counselors is that they are afraid that if they tell anything to the counselors will tell it to their teachers, their parents, the school, and they would much rather just keep it to themselves and not get help in that way.
I think it's also whether the student wants to make the effort to make a change after that, because it's not just for school counselors, I think it's for everyone. So even if you talk to a trusted teacher or parent or friend about your bullying issues, if they give you advice after that on what they think you can do to improve your situation, it's also whether the student wants to make the effort to go and do that. That will change what they're going through.
Given your experience with parents, teachers, and schools, how can we get young people to trust the role of counselors more rather than just being some kind of punishment to go for counseling?
Yeah, I
Or-
think the stigma has always been there. You have a problem, then you go to counselor. A counselor is not there for regular kids kind of thing. I think one of the things that we should look at is developing a school culture. A school culture for parents, teachers, and students, where they have one mindset, they're of one mind of what bullying really is. So the tolerance level is not varied. I think it's this and you think it's that, but there is a culture there for everybody to work towards. And then you empower the students, because the students cannot rely on the teachers forever. They have to be able to come out themselves, and I think empowering them and educating them, in what it is. I remember CABCY, we did a project. We did with this school where we identified the location of bullying zones. We actually had a board, with the floor plan of the school, and we had stickers. So during tea break, the students all came and they all had stickers and they pasted it on the location that they thought, that they believe or they have seen bullying take place. And the teachers were amazed when they came by to see, because they never knew those were bully zones. So then you can educate them and say, look, don't be alone at these isolated places, because this is where bullies will come and look for you, and that's educating them. And that's some of the things that we do at CABCY. When the teachers saw that, they realized that, yeah, bullying takes place. It's not like, it's not there. It is, because so many students have pasted stickers to tell you where bullying takes place. Yeah.
So the work of CABCY also helps equip the teachers to identify where geographically,
Yes.
how the physics or the geography of bullying looks like.
Right. So
Right.
when you have that in a plan, you can work with the school, because every school floor plan is different.
I think it's a good time now to ask Dr. Ann. You have this book that you wrote about the law and youth, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Oh, yes. Well, this is quite a good book, I think. It comes from the Singapore Association of Women Lawyers. So here, we actually had dealt with one full chapter on bullying, but I do think that it covers other things too, like you and the family, and you and your body, these kind of things. And we purposely did it in such a way that it's written for the youth. So you can forget about any jargon, in this book.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I understand how important it is for young people also to know what the law can do for you or to be of help to you. Ethan, in our conversations earlier, you mentioned something, a very interesting thing about your approach to how you manage your own bullying situation. You actually had a story about how you reconciled with your bullies.
I learned something really important about the idea of forgiveness, actually. It was very interesting because forgiveness is not for them, it's for yourself. And talking about that for bullies is an absolutely important thing to think about, because when I hold on to the grudge that the bullies bullied me and they were evil people in my mind, it was othering them. It was really hurting me more than it was hurting them, because I was perpetuating the bullying. So in one of the Buddhist stories that I like a lot is the idea of you're carrying the weight of the person in your mind, even if you're not physically carrying the person. And that's when I realized that forgiveness was actually the best key. So when I finally met my bullies many years later, and I reached out to them and talked to them and said, hey, look, I forgive you. But actually, I didn't really even say that to them. I just went, I think I understand what you went through. And that's when we had a really good conversation.
Wow, Ethan, it was such a beautiful perspective. The perspective of forgiveness, something that I didn't expect as such a fitting end to this episode. With that, I think we end episode 4, or what do we do and what can we do. In episode 5, we'll be talking about authority. Thank you.